How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to TableTakes. It's the best 4 days board gaming all year round. We are joined once again by our fearless leader, Peter Atkinson. Thank you so much for joining us again. It's good to see you.
It's good to be back from vacay.
Awesome. What have you been up to?
I went to Venice. I heard there was going to be this big industry OGL night, breakdown nightmare, and I thought I'm just going to go to Venice for. So I went there with my amazing wife Dee. We met former Gen Con CEO Adrian Swartout and
Nice.
Dwarven Forge celebrity artist owner Stefan Picorni
Yeah.
and Ann Carlton, famous actor, rookie actor, and we just had a wonderful time crossing canals and eating pasta. You know they have great seafood in Venice. I mean, it's almost every restaurant. It's almost everything they serve, and I mean it's really good. Well, except for me because I don't like seafood. But if you go to Venice, I hear the seafood's good.
That sounds like so much fun. I, for my part, just recently watched the newest season of a show about rich people that you might recognize, where they just went to Italy. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But yeah, that's as far as I know about Italy. So I'm glad you had fun. Um, uh, thank you so much for joining us again. We missed you very, very much, so
Oh,
we're glad to
thank
have
you,
you
thank
back.
you. It's good to be back. Woohoo.
Let's check in with some of our other hosts. How about you, Noir? What have you been up to this week?
Oh, just keeping up with the fun of the TTRPG scene. Got a few projects that I'm working on. Just announced that I'm gonna be on Star Trek Perseverance, which is Star Trek actual play run by the same folks that did their Star Trek game on Geek and Sundry. So that's gonna be pretty fun.
That sounds
Wow.
awesome. You
Wow.
sound pretty busy.
Sounds
Are you gonna
good.
have time for table takes?
Oh, absolutely. You guys can't get rid of me that easy.
You better. You better.
Well, good. We're glad to have you back as well. And Bonsai, let's check in with you. How you been?
Yes, I've been great. I'm having the second wave of family coming over to visit me, and a long train of family that is going to visit me probably within the next 4 months as I get closer and closer to my release date of the incubation period of the alien that is inside my belly.
The expansion pack to the
The
Bonsai
expansion
household.
pack is
I can see it.
coming to the
18
bonsai.
years, 18 years from now, my mother called me an alien.
It is, and also very fun. I just got in the mail today my Wingspan Asia expansion pack. So I'm
Ooh.
very excited. Usually I have way too many players at my table, and we finally have a game that we can play with all of us. So I'm excited. I'm excited about all these things. So
Have you
yes.
cracked it open and taken all the pieces out and everything yet? Or
I've cracked it open, and my only problem so far is common to this game. If it's supposed to be expanding, why did they only give me one new set of eggs? I needed two new sets of eggs. All right, you know how many eggs you use at a certain point, especially if you have a good bird engine going on. And they only gave me one packet of eggs. I need more eggs. I guess I gotta go to Etsy and get more eggs from there.
sounds like a good problem to have. I think everybody's having issues with eggs these days. Have you seen the prices for eggs in the market? I mean, they're skyrocketing. It's insane. I think there's a shortage or something. I don't know.
They're like
Um,
$10 minimum.
ugh, what in the world? Oh man, yeah, we got all kinds of problems. But what we don't have problems with are board games. We've got plenty of board game news. Oh wait, you guys probably want to know what I've been up to, huh?
Yes,
Well,
please,
Yeah,
nobody
please let
asked,
us
so I
know.
figured nobody.
No, no, JV, please tell us. Tell us.
Well,
We want
I'll
to
tell you what I haven't been up to. I haven't been playing much Minecraft lately. I've been sulking because I'm still not allowed to play with the rich people anymore.
We're trying to fix the
I'm
server.
still being blockaded from the high society of Bonsai's grand palace. I haven't been able to play a Bonsai server because my computer is unfortunately still too low power, but I'm working on getting pieces together. Also, did you guys know that you can write off board game purchases on your tax returns if you categorize it as a hobby? or if you categorize it as part of your job. Well, I did because I started a new job at H&R Block. I'm a receptionist there now, and I get my taxes done for free. And they told me I could totally do that. So I guess I'm going to justify all the purchases I made at Gen Con last year.
There
It's a
you
tax credit.
go.
Nice.
I'm very excited about that.
Get those tax creds, and also congratulations on the job too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to finally finishing the training process. There is so much paperwork when you're working at H&R Block. All right, well, folks, that's enough about us. Let's talk about everything everyone loves. Let's talk
Yes,
about
yes.
board games and the board game industry and all the news that surrounds it. Let's start with some very exciting news about Gen Con. Peter.
Yes. It is my pleasure to report that badges for Gen Con Indy 2023 will go on sale Sunday, January 29th at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on GenCon.com. Oh, yes, it's that most wonderful time of the year. Yeah, Gen Con in 2023 will continue to operate in a hybrid format featuring all the things you love about Gen Con in person in Indianapolis, like playing games, shopping, hanging out with Javion, luxurious dining and hotel accommodations. But that's not all. Virtual Gen Con, online event programming, and live streaming right here on Gen Con TV throughout the show. So whether you join us in person in Indianapolis or online from home, we can't wait to game with you this summer. Gen Con Indy 2023 will run August 3 through 6 in Indiana Convention Center and Lucas Oil Stadium, celebrating 20 years of events in Indianapolis since Gen Con moved to the city in 2003. Housing will begin on February 12th, event registration for ticketed events on May 21st, but badges go on sale January 29th. Come on, come play with us.
That's so exciting. Well, you know what I'm most excited for Gen Con this year is I heard some rumors. I'm not confirming anything, but apparently there's some talk around the water cooler of the Gen Con offices about some new apparel, some new clothing items that might be available with Gen Con logo on them. Oh man, I hope they're form fitting and all one piece and goes right above the knees.
Wait, are they
Oh,
gonna
are
have
you
the
back to
ones-
the onesies?
the jumpers?
They're not onesies, they're
The
rompers.
jumpers. We
Rompers,
demand
rompers.
rompers. We would demand
Rompers.
rompers here at TableTakes.
That's the real controversy in the TTRPG space right now. Where's our robbers?
Our rompers.
I just hope they fit many different sizes with whatever apparel they come out with, romper or otherwise. What are you guys excited for this year? I'm so happy to hear that the badges are coming up soon. I've saved the date, but what are you looking forward to when it actually shows up?
Well,
Most-
I think, I was talking with David Hoppy a couple days ago, and I'm really excited about what we can do with Gen Con TV and Gen Con online programming. I think that that is, Gen Con is proving that is an ongoing part of Gen Con now. So that's great. I mean, it's great for us as Gen Con TV folk. But I think that David seems really excited about adding spectacle to this, big monitor somewhere so you can watch in the convention center, go by and see people on, we need that sort of feedback loop of people inside the convention seeing what's happening online and people online seeing what's happening on the convention. I think that would be magical, and I think it's going to happen.
That sounds awesome. Bonsai, what about you?
Oh, more LARPing. I'm just waiting to see what my schedule is going to be like. And then maybe I convince Gen Con TV for us to just go and play a LARP session on stream so I can have an excuse to sign up to do a LARP and then bring a camera crew inside. Be like, hey, this is
Just
Gen
give
Con
it-
TV.
Strap a GoPro on everybody's head.
On my
as they
head.
walk around the
GoPro
LARP,
with
it's-
bonsai. It's gonna be a lower view though, because I am a short person. So everyone's complaining last time that they're like, why can't we see over things? I'm like, this is a POV stream, okay?
Can I make a confession? I've never LARPed before, so maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year we all get together and show me how it's done. How about that, Bonsai?
Perfect.
Yes, gotta
Noir,
watch
you
that
love
shit.
LARPing, don't you?
Almost too much. I have too much stuff around. I can just pull LARP stuff out of anywhere. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's so many exciting aspects, and you always have like huge costume pieces and stuff like that. So hope you bring something new for us to witness this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be. I haven't dressed up in my LARP stuff for Gen Con yet. I need to give that a whirl. But I'd
Ooh, okay.
imagine walking around in chainmail all day might get a little exhausting.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, I'll tell you what I'm most excited for Gen Con. New board games. And I hope to see 12 very specific new board games showing up at Gen Con this year. And I'll tell you exactly which ones they are. Really quickly, I just want to say thank you to Alex Meehan from Dicebreaker for compiling this list of board games for me, because I agree wholeheartedly that these 12 new board games that are coming out in 2023, we've got them here for you. We've got the inside scoop on all of them. I'm going to list them all for you. So, coming out in 2023, starting with Septima. Septima is a board game, a card game, based around the concept of a coven of witches living in secret within a small village. You are trying to do those Salem witch trials, but also get the innocent witches to join your party and cast out all of the bad ones. Next up, we've got The Last of Us: Escape the Dark. We've got a The Last of Us board game coming out. There is already one fan made one, but this one has an Escape the Dark bend to it. If you've ever played any of the Escape the Dark Castle or Escape the Dark Sector games, like I have, or if you backed the Kickstarter and all your stuff just showed up, and oh my gosh, what's this? It's a picture of me. It's blurry, so I have to turn off the blur.
It
so
looked
can
like
see
you
it.
put up something filthy and it was automatically censored. I was
It's a
like,
picture of me.
what? Okay.
Oh wow!
Davion's in a board game. I Kickstarted and I spent a ton of money so I could be in the board game now. This is me. I am the Smith character, the blacksmith, who's apparently really, really strong. My best friend calls me Muscles, so I had to go with the most fitting character, right? So excited to play in Escape the Dark Castle. But The Last of Us is going to be having its own edition of Escape the Dark. It's going to be The Last of Us, but Escape the Dark. So with the same black and white sort of gothic horror color scheme to it, but also with some new mechanics to add in a little bit of flavor from the video game as well. Very cool. If you've ever played the game The King's Dilemma, you'll be very excited to hear that The Queen's Dilemma is coming to retail this year as well. There was already a very successful Kickstarter campaign for it. And the Queen's Dilemma, unlike in the first game, is going to represent not just a house that is tied to a certain ideology, but it's going to have you choosing between a cast of diverse characters, each with their own goals to achieve, and you get the free reign to choose how to interpret those goals, how to go about collecting all of the items that you need and sending the story in the direction that you want. It's a very cool game. I'm very excited for that. Next up, we've got Fit to Print. Fit to Print is all about running your own local newspaper. It has an art style that's very irresistibly charming, and it features adorable tableaus of squirrels, badgers, and other woodland creatures wielding pens and notepads. Also, coming out this year, we've got Star Wars, the deck building game. You might have heard of another Star Wars card game, but this one is looking to sort of replace it in a way. Members of the Rebel Alliance will be battling against those of the Empire, but with veteran living card game designer Caleb Grace behind the wheel, its gameplay is sure to be anything but. Also, coming out this year, we've got Daybreak. If you are a fan of Pandemic, you'll notice that it has a very similar feel to it. The same designers who made Pandemic made Daybreak, and it's all about, instead of being about a disease that's taking over the world, it's about climate change and the world powers who have to come together to find a solution. So if you're looking for Pandemic with a little bit of a twist to it, or if you just really like co-op games, definitely check this one out. Speaking of co-op games, we've also got Slay the Spire, the board game, coming out this year. It's going to be based off of the award-winning indie game that's all about playing cards to climb a living spire, fighting all the monsters within, choosing your path wisely to collect loot and lots of relics, so you can eventually kill the spire itself at the very end. But this is a co-op board game version of it that we've very much been looking forward to. Also, this year we've got Mother Tree. Ooh, might not have heard of this one. It flew under the radar for me. It's focused around the concept of mycorrhiza. It's about the symbiotic relationship between mushrooms and trees. You might recognize this aesthetic because it's the same designer who made Wingspan, who created it. So we're very much looking forward to seeing what they do. Mother Tree is actually just a working title, and it's looking to dive deep into this particular area of natural science. All right, next up we've got ARCS. ARCS is a 4-letter word, which might clue you into the fact that it is a sequel, or rather another line in the franchise of 4-letter games from later games. Like Root and Vast, ARCS is a asymmetrical board game all about collapse and conflict in the void. You take it takes place in the science fiction universe, and you're becoming leaders of different factions, just like in Root. But unlike in Root, you don't have your unique play style. You're just trying to get your own goals accomplished. There's public goals, there's secret goals, there's plenty of different missions you can go on. Very much looking forward to it. We've also got Cyclades 2, which might confuse you from the name because there's already a Cyclades 1, and this one is actually just a remake of the Cyclades game that came out decades ago. It's a Grecian-style game with myths and legends through its monster summoning gameplay. Should be a huge hit. And of course, we've also got Sleeping Gods, Distant Skies. If you're a fan of Sleeping Gods when it came out a couple years ago, I know it was a huge hit at Gen Con last year. Well, this is sort of like Sleeping Gods plus. Distant Skies is taking place in the sky in the 1930s, with players stepping into a strange world populated by incredible creatures after their plane passes through a sudden storm. So more of that narrative, exciting co-op goodness that we all loved. And finally, the biggest announcement for 2023 is The Elder Scrolls 6. Just kidding. That's definitely not coming out this year. We don't even know if that's coming out this decade. But to hold you over, we've got The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Order, which is the next Elder Scrolls board game, which instead of focusing on just one area like Skyrim, it's actually opened up the entire continent of Tamriel for all players to explore. So it has players investigating the necromantic order of the Black Worm. There's tons and tons of content in it. It's looking really exciting. That's 12 board games, 12 new board games coming in 2023 for you to get excited about. And don't miss out. I'm very much looking forward to seeing them at Gen Con as well. Whew, that was a lot. That was a lot of board games. Why don't I pass it on over to Noir, and you could tell us about a board game that you're excited about. How about that?
Sounds great. So, I'm so sorry. Everything's moved on me just a little bit. Let me find myself. Oh, awesome. So, there's a new game. There's a new game from Jiangxi designers called the Revenant Society. New sources, Alex Meehan of Dice Breakers, reports that the next tabletop role-playing game from the designers of Jiangxi, Blood in the Banquet Hall, is a horror version of Russian Doll. The Revenant Society is an upcoming tabletop RPG co-designed by Sin Fu Lin and Banana Chan. Revealed by Xingfu Lim via his Twitter, the Revenant Society is an RPG focused around the concept of purgatory and the ultimate goal of passing on to the afterlife. I trust Banana Chan's record when it comes to gaming. Jiangxi is just a wonderfully creative endeavor. I haven't seen Banana Chan go wrong. And I love this topic and this subject matter, so I'm very curious to try and get my hands on Revenant. It sounds like a game that is going to elicit some tears out of me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that attempt at all of those different names. There's a lot of them in there, and this looks like a very exciting game too. I've always had this idea of like that endless loop as an RPG, and I've seen some adaptations for like D&D and things like that, but I've never seen it as its own RPG. So this seems like it's going to be pretty cool. Well, okay, let's head on into our next headline. We've got the Games Workshop reveal. It's a new Age of Sigmar boxed set for Warhammer. This one comes to us from Jeffrey Dom Sanchez via ICV2. Thank you as always. Games Workshop has revealed Vanguard Slaves to Darkness. It's a new Warhammer Age of Sigmar box set, and it's going to be up for pre-order on January 14th. So actually tomorrow, yeah, it looks like it's coming out tomorrow. So head into your local game store, check it out. Chaos players can continue their conquest over the mortal realms in this new box set. It's going to contain 17 miniatures. It's going to include a Chaos Lord, 10 Chaos Warriors, 5 Chaos Knights, and a new upgrade sprue and a chariot. This set's perfect for starting up a new army for 2023 or adding on to an existing one. So plenty of stuff for veterans or new players alike. Alongside the box set, Games Workshop is also releasing the Battletome Slaves to Darkness. It's 128 pages long and covers all the rules and lore that you need to play the Dark Legions on the battlefield. Looks like it's also coming in a limited edition version as well. We love limited edition versions, anything that's extra shiny and costs a little bit extra. I mean, it's just great for your shelf, right? It's going to have glit page edges, a soft touch cover, and a red ribbon bookmark. That's definitely what you need for any Warhammer battle tome or otherwise. A bookmark to help you keep your place for the spot that you keep flipping to every time you need to know how many dice you need to roll. It looks like Games Workshop is also has also released another Slaves to Darkness army set last year. So definitely check out this article if you want to learn more about it. So just judging by the art set, you're getting plenty of what you were expecting when we were looking forward to this set coming out. Chaos players getting plenty of content to add into their worlds, into their games on the table. So it's looking pretty good. I'm really happy to see that there's this sort of, I wouldn't say Viking-esque, but I would say pretty close to that like sort of demon Viking vibe to it. Because I'm just a big fan of like Norse mythology in general. I mean, you got a chariot, so that's actually a little bit more Grecian, I suppose. It looks like it's pretty open to interpretation as usual, right? It depends on how you think. It's always about how you paint your miniatures. You can have them be whatever you want eventually. All right. Well, that's all we have for the Warhammer Games Workshop news. We got so much stuff to cover today. We're gonna roll right into some more news about actually some sobering news that Peter, I think you should lead us. What do you say?
Yeah, well, this I was glad to cover this bit of news because it involves a dear friend of mine, Ken Hite, the well-known game designer, was shot walking home from work near his home in Chicago, Illinois. Ken Hite has been a prolific game designer and writer for, well, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, but is probably best known for Trail of Cthulhu, Night's Black Agents, Vampire the Masquerade 5th Edition, and his 10-year running podcast with Robin Laws. Ken and Robin talk about stuff. The best way to report the story is to simply read Ken's own account as posted on Facebook. Did I mention he's an amazing writer? Listen to this, you'll see my point. Okay, so here's what he posted. So I got shot in the leg this morning. I'm fine. The bullet went through and through, didn't hit bone or a major blood vessel. If you're in the market for a gunshot wound, I recommend this one. I was walking home at 3:10 a.m. from my co-working session a block from my house. Car pulls up, 2 guys with guns jump out, words are exchanged. I dodge past one and run. He lets off 4 or 5 rounds and realizes he's let off 4 or 5 rounds in a very heavy policed Hyde Park, and they jump back in the car and tear off. I go inside, see blood on the floor, wake up Sheila. She calls 911. Cops show up. I get the tourniquet and a ride to the hospital, where as a gunshot victim, I get checked in under a pseudonym. Easily the coolest thing that happens to me. By 7:25 a.m., my very cool nurse, Kayla, has tied my bandage and tired of my bandage, and I am dismissed with permission to mix acetaminophen and ibuprofen. When we return home, Sheila's demon cat, Black Phillip, has won the mental bet I made with him by not lapping up my blood. Like I said, I'm fine. I leave you with this thought from the unexpectedly goth nurse, Kayla. I know people worry they've lost too much blood. Don't worry, you keep making more, just like tears. Glad you're okay, Ken.
Interesting. I'm glad that they were able to put such a positive spin on something that's so scary. I guess it just goes to show when you're running a Twitter and you also happen to be a really creative game designer, you just end up coming up with some wacky stuff. I'm really happy to hear that he's okay. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry
yeah.
to hear that happen. It's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
What a lovely sense of humor, though. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, very glad to hear he's okay.
I mean, Noir, this was in Chicago. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
really close to you.
It'd be like, well, actually, Hyde Park is 10 minutes that way. So
so it's like super
Wow.
close.
Oh,
yeah.
Noir, I hope I mean, as cool as the story would be, I hope nothing like this ever happens to any of us. I'm worried for you. Just make sure when you're walking home, do you have any pets for yourself? I mean, they had a demon cat to help them out. How about you? No.
I there would be shooting back.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess we don't have to worry much about Noir. Well, I'm glad to
Anita's
hear that.
packing.
Yeah.
I've lived in Chicago a long time. I'll be all right.
Well, Ken Haidt, I'm happy to hear that things are actually okay. I'm glad you got a cool story out of it, and speedy recovery to you.
Yes, yes. The gaming world has breathed a sigh of relief.
Oof,
Seriously.
yeah. Let's well, speaking of a sigh of relief, how about the exact opposite? How does that sound? Noir, why don't you take us into the big news headline for this episode?
Oh, is there something major happening in the TTRPG space? I wasn't aware. Oh, look, it's here. Additional OGL leaks and fan backlash calls WotC to cancel OGL announcement. As you're all very much aware, the OGL 1.1 was leaked. In addition to that leak, a D&D Beyond employee leaked an internal WotC discussion on the OGL, which essentially stated that the metric that Wizards is paying the most attention to currently is their D&D Beyond. And so fans in reaction to the OGL have decided to collectively cancel their subscriptions to D&D Beyond. On Monday, Battlezoo announced that they had obtained a copy of the leaked OGL, and they leaked the full document. So before, where we were going based on Linda Codega's partial leak, we now have on our hands the full leak. The leak seemed to confirm that the contents of the Gizmodo article last week, and if anything, the contents of the OGL 1.1 were even worse than reported. For instance, the article seemed to indicate that WotC was open to considering feedback to this OGL. The leak instead showed that this line was only in relation to their ability to immediately terminate the license without legal repercussions. With Wizards of the Coast declining to release any statement on the leaks, fan backlash continued to grow throughout the week, with many online communities promoting boycotts of WotC products and D&D branded properties. Now, I should add the addendum that we have received an official statement now from D&D Beyond. But continuing through here, earlier Thursday, someone purporting to be a D&D Beyond employee contacted a number of D&D influencers that claimed that the OGL rollout was being briefly delayed while executives monitored the actual financial impact of the leaks. Executives believed the backlash was overblown and short-lived, and they would supposedly be watching the D&D Beyond subscription numbers as a leading early indicator of actual financial impact. This resulted in several of those influencers, such as D&D Shorts and Ginny D, calling on fans to cancel their D&D Beyond subscriptions. The response was so strong that it appears to have briefly crashed the D&D Beyond subscription management page. Gizmodo is also reporting that the OGL, now called OGL 2.0, announcement was supposed to take place on Thursday afternoon, but was canceled or delayed in response to the backlash. As previously announced, 3 p.m. As a previously announced 3 p.m. Twitch live stream on the D&D Beyond channel was canceled. So there's more news. Just bear with us here. Friday morning, WotC has released an OGL update on D&D Beyond.
That's this Friday morning, right? That's
Yep.
today.
8
Today.
a.m.
Friday morning. Look, listen. This is such a fast moving story. It's really interesting to see it evolve. In response to all the criticism, Wizards has finally released a statement on the OGL changes. First off, they seem to tactically acknowledge the leaks were real. Tacitly acknowledge this leaks were real. They are backtracking on a few points they were originally included in the OGL 2.0. The scope of the new OGL won't be as restricted, leaving room for things such as educational and charitable campaigns, live streams, cosplay, VTT uses, etc. They are no longer coming after content already published under OGL 1.0A, but it still seems to imply that they have the rights to deauthorize the prior OGL. They are going to be removing the license back provisions from the new OGL and addressing their legal liability with incidental similarity in a different way. They are removing the royalty structure from the new OGL. This doesn't necessarily mean they are removing royalties entirely, only the 3-tier structure in the original draft. Initial responses to this update still seem to be less than positive. The update has a few bits that sound fairly condescending, and some that are a bit dishonest. But yeah, so that's where we're standing on the OGL now. So with everything as it is, I know that the three of us, Bonsai, me, and Jamie, we've kind of shared our thoughts on this before, but I kind of wanna put the spotlight on you, Peter, as somebody that was a little bit more involved in the original OGL, to see if we can get some of your thoughts on this.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry to put you in the spotlight, buddy.
But one thing I want to mention real quickly is that I highly encourage anybody who's kind of curious what some of us old timers who were involved in creating the OGL think about it. I'd love to sort of wave a flag at Ryan Dancy. He more than anyone, Ryan Dancy is responsible for the OGL. Brian Lewis would be the second person that I would list as the people most responsible. He's the attorney that wrote the OGL. Ryan Dancy, if he were here, he would be, sharing credit with his team. People like Lisa Stevens were on his team. Cindy Rice, Bill Slavisek, legends from WotC and TSR history. So this is back in the 90s, and he has a 2.5-hour interview of him talking about the OGL and the creation of the OGL and why it's there, why it's there. So it's on a YouTube channel called Roll for Combat, and the guys there do a great job of interviewing him. So I just want to mention that my thoughts about the whole thing are very eloquently summed up. Is it the right words? 2.5-hour interview. I was sitting there nodding my head like this the whole time Ryan was chatting about it. So, but back to to more personal viewpoints for myself. The licensing back clause of the OGL was very onerous. So I'm really relieved that WotC is perhaps rescinding that. It is that is the part that's just really scary. So if I am and it's overreaching, it's just not completely not appropriate. So it's like if I'm publishing a world or a story and I'm promoting it on streaming using 5e mechanics, and I'm promoting D&D by using those mechanics in the world or story that I'm creating, going after that intellectual property that I own that's completely separate from the rules, the world, and the story that I'm creating. It'd be like Microsoft going after me because I wrote the manuscript using MS Word. It is not a good thing at all. That is the part that will scare people away from using the OGL. The world that you're creating, the fantasy worlds that we create and live in and we role play in, are separate from the game. The game is fun. We play games, we love games, but the game is simply simulating activity that's happening in the world. And you can switch game systems. The I know this for a fact. With my own Fantasy World Chaldea, I've run it using multiple editions of Dungeons and Dragons. I've run it using Fiasco. I've run it using Burning Wheel. I've run games using Pathfinder. None of that affects the story. It's more like a simulation. Like this simulation is different characteristics than that simulation. So Hasbro needs to understand it's not hard to switch from your OGL and go to another OGL. So don't go encouraging us to do so. I think the other thing I would want Hasbro to understand is that you're looking at this like a license, and you should be looking at this like a platform. And Ryan makes this point very eloquently in his interview on Roll for Combat. It is like, the DOGL is like a computer operating system or a social media platform. And here's the key point: the value of that platform increases the more people are using the platform. And so you own the biggest platform in tabletop RPGs, but people can switch platforms. And so for platform plays to work, engagement with that platform needs to be frictionless for the people using it. So, I mean, this is next to the Dungeons and Dragons brand itself. This is the most important thing you own in the tabletop RPG space. But you won't keep it if you threaten people and make it like you've been talking about making it, because people will just, I don't know. Orc is now sounding interesting. Orc is the like, I gotta hand it to Paizo for coming up with the best brand name ever for the open role-playing game creative license. Orc. I mean, yeah. So I haven't been looking at Orc, I mean, hey. So there really is a significant risk of losing a big portion of your fan base with this move. It's happened before. It can happen again. Don't think it can't. I'm not saying that in a threatening way. I think I'm actually saying it in a loving way. I love D&D. Obviously, I love WotC. Obviously, I just would hate to see you make such a big mistake.
Yeah, there's more news we have for you coming up about Orc and about how other TTRPGs are going to be have been responding to this news. But before we get into that, I really quickly want to just chime in with my own thoughts. I will admit, at first, when I heard that it was a leak, I kind of just dismissed it. When I hear about things as sort of tentative as it sounded at first, I don't like overblowing things and going out of proportion with things, but I feel like now we've gotten a little bit more concrete evidence that this was actually planned to be released. And in fact, once it was released, they were actually, even now, they are closely monitoring how their sales are going, which means instead of actually being open and saying, "Hey, tell us what you think," they're really just saying, "Tell us what you think with your dollars," rather than with your actual words or like by messaging us and things like that. And of course, there's still plenty of ways to get in contact. But I think the thing that stands out most to me here is that with the open letter that people have sent out, that people have signed, sort of like a petition, and with the huge amount of people that, like Ginny D and others, have been calling for people to revoke their subscriptions. I know that Noir, I noticed from your Twitter, even you have canceled yours as well. I
It hurt.
honestly never had subscribed. But like seeing all of these things, it really looks like, yeah, everything we thought about it being a very money focused thing was true. But I think it's also very interesting. I don't know if you mentioned this response yet, Noir, but I think it's very interesting that they mentioned that uh, this was all about making sure that they could go back and stop people who have been misusing the content. That seems to put a little bit more in context for me. Because if the idea is to have more control so that they can do better for the community, I think that this is a really terrible way of going about it, of making that known. I think there are other very, very more clear, direct ways of going after those than turning everything into a huge threat. What do you think, Noir?
Uh, I do believe that part of the motivation for the update to the OGL was to make sure that there is a method to control content, be it hateful content and the like. Uh, and I would take that in good faith. It's just everything that surrounded it that kind of it's it's
All
it's
the
like,
other aspects
yeah,
undermine that idea.
absolutely. It's
Right,
very
exactly.
much a Trojan horse. Like you don't like hateful content, right? Well, just let this horse on in, and then then
Right.
there's everything else that people have to deal with. The sentiment of what, like, kind of seeing the leak and not being too overly concerned is one that a lot of people share. And I would share that if it wasn't a direct threat to the livelihood of a number of designers and the
Absolutely.
like. When when the beacons are lit, there's always a chance that it was lit by mistake, but you can't take it that way if it threatens how you put food on the table. I think that Watsy's if Watsy's intentions really were to get everyone's opinion, then, like you said, like you and Peter mentioned, there's a much better way to do that than this. It's death by a thousand cuts. It's the content that was in the original leak. It was the amount of time that it took for Watsy to respond. And if we think about it, Watsy themselves have not responded. Let's not forget, D&D Beyond is not Wizards of the Coast. So technically, we still haven't heard from Wizards of the Coast.
Mhm.
And that's a big deal. I mean, it's somebody going to your house and saying, put all the money in the bag, and it is and we're kind of waiting for Wizards to go, just kidding, and we haven't got that just kidding yet. So it feels like an assault, and that's
Right.
how people are taking it. I think if you look at this with a more skeptical eye, this clearly looks as though Wizards is seeing the popularity of some of the other third partiers and wanting to get their piece. I can't help but notice all the things happening all at once. There is I think it might have been the rules lawyer or somebody who brought up a very interesting point, which is the timing of all this is very suspicious in the sense that it's it's I think Wizards expects an influx of people coming in to play D&D from the movies and the cartoons and everything that they're getting ready to put out. And so they want to have everything on lock once they bring in new people into the hobby. Veterans be damned. And in so doing, fourth edition had the problem with the OGL in the sense that they locked everybody out of creating content for fourth edition, and so they accidentally made Paizo what it is today. I think the OGL existed to stop another Paizo from being created, and instead now they have Cobalt Press coming out with their own system. Now they have MCMA coming out with their own system. Now they have the Orc
Right.
license to deal with. I feel as though in their attempt to make sure that they get their hands in everybody's cookie jar, we're just switching to muffins now.
Bonsai, what about you? I know that all three of us have been talking about this for a couple weeks now, but has any of the news that's come out this week changed how you feel or what you think?
Well, I always like, at least for me, when it always comes to like how they were saying about the like cultural appropriation or like cultural making sure that things are not offensive before they publish it. I always thought of it having to be a separate company that should probably view it and not internal company or a branch. This just is like, hey, yeah, I get what you're trying to say, but I can see that this other solution, probably like a third party that's not within that necessarily like corporation that can be more of a consulting agency, would have probably been better. And also, I see at this point, like I honestly, in my personal opinion, I think they waited too long to even make a statement about the leaks, about the opinions of people being saying. It's kind of like a do you or damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because like the amount of period of time that they waited is now anything they could possibly say. They could be like singing the archangels and the scriptures right now, but people will be like, no, too late. That like mentality of they just waited too long to make a statement is really the bigger thing. And I think it is like the like Noir was saying, I think a lot of this push was because they saw the movie deal coming up and were trying to build a wall to prepare for that movie, and thus alienating their current fan base in many ways, and people who love it. And also it maybe because over time people thought, oh, D&D is, when you introduce role playing, everybody's default is D&D, D&D, D&D as the default, and they thought that was maybe a more sound structure than they thought it was going to be, and thought it like, release this OGL so they can go ahead and fortify these walls, only to discover that, hey, by the way, people who have been experienced in the role-playing community like myself haven't really been playing a lot of these 5th editions because we have so many other role-playing games like Knights of Black Agents and stuff like that, and Savage Worlds. Like I've been going around and going for more narrative-based things myself. But yeah, it's more of a, I think at this point, damned if they do, damned if they don't. They need to really just focus on fixing the damage they've done to the community. That's the bigger thing.
Absolutely. And speaking of the community, why don't you actually lead us into our next headline, Bonsai?
All right, so let's go ahead. After all this announcement, of course, coming in about the OGL, let's go ahead and talk about the waves that has, the horns that have been blowing, the flags that have been raised as as the backlash of this, as several of the severe as the fan reaction was to the OGL news, the industry reaction has been even greater. For many, the OGL change threatens to completely upend a lot of businesses. It seems like every third-party publisher responds in some kind of way. The biggest announcement was, of course, this Thursday, when the Open RPG Creative License, also known as the ORC license, hashtag ORC Rebellion, a lot of ways that people have been putting, when Paizo announced, along with Paizo, Cobalt Press, Chaosium, Legendary Games, Rogue Genius, Green Ronin, and the list is basically growing as we speak. Whew. Of people signing up to be part of the ORC. The ORC is designed to be a system-neutral open RPG license. Paizo says it will not be owned by them or any other partnered company on its creation. Instead, it will be initially be managed by a law firm that drafts it, and before turning it over to a nonprofit with a history of open source values of its own license. This, I think, is great. This makes it so it's out of everybody's hands. I agree. This is like a actually really winning, well-known nonprofit to go into, and like just like it makes it so no matter what, this makes it the most safest ground for people to stand on in terms of foundations. Additionally, there is also an update to the Paizo thing. Just about, I believe, about an hour ago, they also expanded more upon this statement. Of course, we were in the meeting right now. We could not get that fresh news for you, but Paizo did also make more of a statement, expanding their thoughts and why they're doing it the way they're doing it. And if you want to read up on that, I believe we can go ahead and shoot some links in chat. But additionally, a ton of other previous third-party publishers who use the OGL have released their own independent statements. Cobalt announces a Project Black Flag to design their own open fantasy tabletop role-playing to replace 5th edition in their future publications. Matt Colville also announced that MCDM will also begin their own new tabletop RPG. Lord of Troll Games announced that they will be liquidating their entire OGL products, stock of OGL products, and their upcoming products will not use the OGL. And Frog Games, this is a big one. Frog Games is also selling all their OGL products at 50% off and made a statement rejecting the new OGL, saying that they will cease production if the new OGL is forced upon them. So basically, they're like, we're going to shut down if we're going to have the new OGL put upon us. The reaction wasn't just limited to folks who use the OGL either. It seems that these changes also prompted other publishers to look at their license agreement and make some kind of modification. So Modifius officially announced their 2D20 world building community content program. We talked about this previously. It wasn't supposed to be coming in this week, but it seems that they rushed to respond to the OGL backlash and just was like, well, put it down now. It's hot on the presses. Everybody's looking for sources. Pinnacle Entertainment, the folks behind Savage World System, launched Savage Universe. Not too many details are available on the website, but according to the email that was announced, it's a new website where Savage World creators will be able to promote products, reach fans, network, and other license with partners with us for new and exciting things. Also, Monty Cook Games expanded the amount of content covered by their Cypher system in open license, adding most of their godforsaken games to the Cypher SRD. And then also, Free League completely took down their open game license for further review. So yeah, I'm sorry if I had to rush through that. There is just so much. I had to open the full hose on you. I don't know how else you all think about that. Basically the reactions to everything.
Yeah, no worries, Bonsai. I thank you for giving us a complete rundown. There's so many exciting things to look forward to. I mean, whether WotC intended it or not, this is happening. Like, they have opened the floodgates now, and we're at a point of no return. So the orc, it's a thing. It's really happening. And I think Matt Colville said it best, that what we really want is not a big, giant trademark as our master to like look at and always introduce people to that first, and then introduce them to other games as well. What we really should want, is a huge variety of many different RPGs making their own stake in like the RPG world. And I mean, I'll be the first person to suggest something other than D&D for people if I think it's going to fit their group better. For some groups, D&D is perfect, but now I think people are opening their eyes, and whether D&D likes it or not, there's a lot of momentum behind other people building their own systems and promoting them in a way that other people are actually really going to get behind. I think we could start seeing something along the lines of a big open sort of platform for you to buy RPGs and really scour a big list of many different options and just shop around for what's right for your group.
Yeah, I'm extraordinarily excited for Orc. Just the number of third parties involved in it are gonna open up a plethora of options for game designers. I think we're gonna encounter some legal battles in this space soon to see what can and cannot stand. I don't think that Orc is going to exist without a fight. But should it stand, I'm extraordinarily excited for it. I don't think there's a way to kind of look at the story and look at the original OGL and not get the sense that it was supposed to be forever. I think the original spirit of the OGL was one that was supposed to stand, and a lot of people counted on that fact, and the fact that we are where we are now. I think that this is the most clever and strategic move that could be made, and I'm very excited to see Paizo do it. Paizo, I just, to be completely transparent, I am a huge fan of Paizo.
Oh, we know.
I'm a huge fan of the fact that Paizo is a union company. And it is extraordinarily excited to see them taking the reins of this in the midst of like so much conflict and division within the community. Seeing them bring it all together has been exciting, and I think that in the attempt to stop one Paizo from being created, Wizards has made a lot more of them.
Well, why don't we wrap up this episode of Table Takes with a call to action? And Peter, why don't you just send us off with this one?
All right. Thank you, Javion. Yeah. So if you're, a gamer, you're not a game company, you're like, well, how can I help? Ryan Dancy has a solution for you. Like I mentioned, Ryan Dancy is the guy that created the OGL, him and Brian Lewis. Brian Lewis, the guy who's behind the new Orc initiative. So Ryan Dancy has put a petition on let's see, on where did it go? Well, let me just say, so if you'd like to register your dismay about the Hasbro Open Gaming License cluster suck, Ryan Dancy organized an online petition that asks them to reconsider. If you've never heard of Ryan Dancy, let me vet him for you. He's a single person most responsible for open source tabletop gaming, the open gaming license, D20, all that. He's the guy. If we were here, he would hasten to share his credit with his all-star team. And since I was at WotC at the time, I like to take credit too. But all I did in that moment was tell Ryan, wow, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do it. So Ryan's petition is on change.org. It is titled Hasbro, please take no action regarding the Open Gaming License version 1.0A. And it says this, quote, 2 decades ago, I helped create the Open Gaming License, which helped save Dungeons and Dragons. Today, that license is at risk of being changed by Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. I am hoping that a coordinated response by the community might make them reconsider their plans. Please join me in signing this petition on change.org. The more people who sign, the more visible this effort will become, and the more likely we will have an impact on the decisions made by Hasbro. I signed it. If you're wondering what you can do, I recommend joining me and thousands of others and sign it too. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Peter. I signed it as well. And I hope, yes, like you said, Peter, I hope many of you take this as your opportunity to let them know what you think. Let them know how you feel about all of this. Sign the petition. All right. Well, folks, that is all we have for today's episode. We had so much to say about D&D's open game license that we just didn't have time for anything else, but that's okay, because coming up later tonight at 5 p.m., we do have Sarah's Table once again. And we are, are we not having? Oh, never mind. That's it for today. You're gonna have to wait for next week. Sorry. Next week we will have much more board game news. We'll have TableTakes Game Night, a very special episode where we'll be playing Betrayal at House on the Hill. And we'll also have Sarah's Table returning that week as well. For those of you who don't know our streaming schedule, on Mondays we've got Board Games with the Brothers Murph at 4 p.m. We've got Dress to Quest at 6 p.m. And on Wednesdays at 6 p.m., we've got Actoroki. We've got Series 4 continuing with the script reading of the RPG session. It's very exciting. On Thursdays, we have Blood on the Clock Tower at 10 a.m. And a very special episode is coming this week where not only you, but others are going to join some of the Gen Con TV crew as we play Blood on the Clock Tower. It's going to be super fun. And at 4 p.m. on Thursdays, we've got Roll with Rem Alternus. You can watch as we interview the creators, developers of interview with the creators, developers, and Shadowrun. I don't know what that is. Sorry. All right. So folks, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our viewers, but also thank you to all of our hosts. So glad you could make it back with us, Peter. And quick shout out to our producer, Marcus, who isn't feeling super well. We wish you a very speedy recovery. Hope you feel super, super good next week, so we can play some more board games together. And for folks out there, if you missed any of our programming, if you wanted to hear more of our thoughts from last week or the week before about the OGL or any other topics, you can check out the VODs here on Twitch or on YouTube 24 hours later. Or you could just follow us here and never miss an episode of the best 4 days in gaming all year long. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.